I say the greatest tool you own for change, for profit, for impact is your voice. Especially the times we live in, we connect to people in an instant through our voice. Actually, we have 7 seconds, it's crazy, for people to decide whether they like us or not. So there's tips to do that, but I think we can learn so much when we hear people, and so many people have such incredible stories that can really impact people. And so that's why I believe that, especially if you're in business or you're someone who has a message to share, it's so important to speak up.
Welcome to another episode of the I Love Monday podcast. Today we have a TEDx public speaker, Islam channel presenter, and the founder of Power of Voice Academy, Khalila Lister. Welcome to the podcast.
Assalamu alaikum.
That was about 4 takes, guys, and it's never happened before. Welcome. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
I'm going to tackle the elephant in the room first.
Go for it.
Because you're a public speaker with a niqab.
Yeah.
How do you do this? And let's start from the beginning. What's your reason for wearing the veil?
Reason for wearing the veil? So I became Muslim in 2007, and my life was, I was on stages, I was hosting, and everywhere that you went to get in through the doors, it was all based on how you look. So I was doing very well, but it was always on how you look. You need to wear a bit more makeup, you need to do a bit more this. And when I found Islam, obviously, I really understood how Islam shows that women are queens, that we are deserving of respect. And although I didn't think I would ever put on hijab, I was like, I will never wear hijab. Very quickly, as I started to meet more amazing women, and I learned that the women around the messenger, they wore niqab, and I personally, when I put it on, I just fell in love with it. I just feel free, and it's a personal choice. I always want to make it clear, I don't think I'm better than anyone that doesn't wear it. It's a piece of cloth, but it's something that I feel very strongly about. I love wearing it, and that was my reason. But yeah, you don't think public speaker when you see a niqab, that is for sure.
Does it make you feel liberated?
Absolutely, 100%. Because when I did TEDx, and there was a non-Muslim man that was listening, and he sent me a message, and he said, I never understood why anyone wears a veil or a hijab. And he said, I understand now, because you lead with your mind, not your looks. And I was like, that's exactly it. It's so powerful.
Okay, so since you've mentioned that before 2007, how was your life? What were you doing? Because you also left school when you were quite young, right?
I did. I was very rebellious. So my background was always in drama, the stage. It's in my family. That's all I ever really knew. And when I was a young teenager, I fell into some crazy crowds, you could say. I was not the best kid. I left school at 14. So I was out doing crazy things, mixing with crazy things. But I was very into using my voice. I always have been. So I started doing a lot of radio. I got very quickly in, and I was asked to host a lot of events because I'd trained in speaking my whole life, and I got into it very quickly. So by the time I was 17 years old, I was on stages in front of thousands all the time.
Wow.
That was my life. But obviously, when I became Muslim, it was the hardest battle to know how to do that as a Muslim.
What was your journey into becoming a Muslim?
I remember that I was around a lot of celebrities, so people that were really, really successful. And when the cameras were on, they were the happiest people you could ever see. And I would obviously be working with them. So when the cameras went off, I would see that majority of them were really empty, even though they had the money or the cars or whatever it is that materialistically we think is successful. A lot of them were still very empty, and you would see afterwards they would go and numb it in alcohol, in drugs, in other things because they weren't happy. And I saw 2 reasons. One of them is because I think a lot of people are not themselves. So they're going on camera, they're being this person, especially in the music industry, you would see it the most, but they're not actually who they're portraying. So there's only so long that you can feel content, because when the cameras aren't on, you're not yourself. And the other thing is money didn't give them true happiness. So I think that sent me on a soul-searching journey.
How could you see they were empty? Was it the alcohol, drugs, or was it
it
other
was
signs?
Conversations. A lot of them would be still miserable, or some of them are battling depression, and you're like, you've got your dreams, you've got everything that outwardly everybody thinks you want, and not everyone, but a lot of people, there is a lot of depression, there's a lot of exactly drugs, numbing it in drugs, and I just really understood that there had to be more, and that's what set me on this soul-searching journey, going through different religions until, alhamdulillah, I found Islam.
And then how did you tackle the challenge where you were always on stage, and then after you reverted to go back on stage?
Yeah, so literally, I remember I took my Shahada 2007, Baker Street Mosque, best day of my life, and I don't know what I thought, but I hadn't really thought further ahead. And very, very soon, it was within the first week, I got a call from my agent, because I had an agent back then, and he was screaming down the phone, and he was saying to me, "You've made it, you've done it," because I was asked to host one of the biggest celebrities at the time. It was like a multi-million-dollar record company owner, and they wanted me to host, and that would have been the big one. And I just remember in that moment, it just dawned on me, even though I'd been working so hard to, it's not easy to get into these positions.
Yeah,
I've been really grinding, going out. Back in those days, it was like handing out things on the street. And he was like, "What's wrong?" And I just said, "I can't do it." Because as a Muslim woman, I couldn't go in the nightclub. I wasn't wearing hijab yet at that point, but I obviously had started praying. I loved this purer way of life, and there was just no way I would be able to do it. So when I said no, he didn't ever speak to me again. It was like I had but I felt so lost. And I just remember crying, even to my mum, who, by the way, was not happy that I was a Muslim. But even she, from I believe it was from God, she said to me, "But would you feel happy if you followed that path when it went against everything that you now believe in?" So I didn't. I did nothing for 14 years. As a Muslim, I didn't continue.
2007?
From 2007, yeah, I did nothing for maybe 13 years. I had no idea how, as a Muslim woman, I would be able to continue this life. And it was only when I came into entrepreneurship that I realized that we can still use our voice, that we can still create impact and message as women. Why not? And once I started, it's just been incredible. It's been incredible. It's been an incredible journey. But
so what was your day-to-day life when you said, okay, you weren't doing anything for them 13 years?
I was in a very abusive marriage. I ended up in a very toxic, abusive marriage. I had my children, which was beautiful, but I think I kind of was silenced. I wasn't if you met me then, I wasn't the person that I was before, and I definitely am now. I had to build back up, but alhamdulillah, I had my religion, so I was happy in that, of course, but I definitely was very isolated. I spent a long time not knowing how to be me as a Muslim, and that's something a lot of reverts face, that actually God gave us our personalities. I don't think there's enough that helps us to understand that we can still be ourselves, but just a new halal version, right?
Yeah. So how did you, or even like other reverts, combat this? Because if you feel you can't be yourself, that you've gone down a path which you feel is correct, there needs to be some kind of thing that marries the two together.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of us are quite easily taken advantage of in the beginning, because we have this new zeal towards Islam, and yet we don't know what is okay, what's not okay. I think for me it was entrepreneurship. Going into entrepreneurship, I suddenly was immersed into this world of phenomenal, strong Muslim women doing amazing things. I'm like, oh, okay, Khadija, she was a businesswoman. Aisha, she was outspoken. Hang on a minute. All these things that I'm being told, that's not Islam. Islam is beautiful. Women are allowed personalities. And now I've kind of changed my circles. So now I'm with very ambitious women who, we still are modest. We still are adhering to certain things that I definitely wouldn't have done before I was Muslim. But we're still us. And I think that's what's really important, just having the right companions around you to encourage you, really.
So what were your circles like before? Was it people that bring you down, or was it?
I wouldn't say keep me down, but it was definitely people that were not about growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now do you feel like it's more of a growth mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people I surround myself with now are people who definitely have growth mindset, who want you to win, who celebrate your wins, who just want to rise up together and make a difference in this world. Like, we can't create change or allow people's minds to change if we keep silent. And that's something I've definitely realized over the past couple of years specifically.
You say a lot, I've seen on a few of your videos, that your power is your voice, along them lines. Why?
I say the greatest tool you own for change, for profit, for impact is your voice. Especially the times we live in, we connect to people in an instant through our voice. Actually, we have 7 seconds, it's crazy, for people to decide whether they like us or not. So there's tips to do that. But I think we can learn so much when we hear people, and so many people have such incredible stories that can really impact people. And so that's why I believe that, especially if you're in business or you're someone who has a message to share, it's so important to speak up.
So were you a public speaker first, or did you start your academy first?
So I started, as a Muslim, my first business was called Homeschool Queens.
Okay.
So I started a homeschooling business for Muslim moms, and it did really, really well very quickly. We had, it's kind of closed at the moment, we had thousands of moms around the world using our products. And that was my first taste into entrepreneurship. I would say I can get addicted to things quite easily. I think most entrepreneurs can. So I trained as a coach, as an entrepreneurship and life coach, and I did all of those things to really prosper in business myself, and just started to study business. And then that's where I then realized how important it is to speak. Because when we did a masterclass, my phone was just going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching before we'd even finished. And I was like, oh, okay, see, I'm connecting to people so much more through sharing stories and speaking. And that's when I went and I studied with some of the greatest public speakers in the world, like Lisa Nichols. I don't know if you've heard of her, but I studied with a lot of really amazing speakers and trained to then help others, because there were no Muslims. Maybe 1 or 2 men sometimes, but certainly no Muslim women in speaking training.
So do you target mainly Muslim women?
Yeah, so my main target, the main people I work is Muslim women, but I work with brothers as well.
So what kind of reception have you had from Muslim women who wanted to become public speakers, or maybe never even thought they've had the confidence?
It's been amazing. I actually only opened my academy last year, so it's only been a year, and God is merciful, because I've worked with some incredible people, and I've worked with women who have really big brands. I mean, some of the brands I've worked with, like Desi Doll, I don't know if you've heard of her.
No.
So she's got a massive, amazing brand list in Harrods and Asda, Morrison. She makes these amazing products, and she'd never shared her story on a stage ever. So I worked with her, and she did her keynote actually just last weekend at a really amazing networking women's event, and she had an amazing reception. And it's just so great having these women share their stories. And I mean, I work with all kinds of women. One of my clients is one of the only Muslim women in some field of science. She does a lot of science work, and just getting women up and speaking and knowing confidence is not arrogance, which I think is a big cultural misconception that we have.
Why is that?
I think it's a cultural misconception that a woman being too confident might come across as arrogant, when if we don't believe in ourselves, no one's going to believe in us. So selling our skills and sharing is from God, right? So it's understanding that it's okay to say you're good at something. It's okay to let people know what you do. And I think there has been a bit of a cultural misconception looking through that we need to break. And I can definitely see it now, especially with the rise of social media, it's starting to break more and more.
I think like before we were always taught to become or to be humble.
Yeah.
And then that humble can easily translate into a lack of confidence. But you can be confident and humble at the same
100%,
time. You don't have to be arrogant to not be humble.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
But if a person isn't confident when they come to you, what kind of tips do you give them?
Like I just said, if you don't believe in yourself, if you're coming out on a stage, for example, which is my favorite place, but it doesn't have to be a stage, but even if you're just going on social media and you're like, I think I'm good because, maybe I can help. We don't want to part with our money. Humans generally have a big struggle for us to part with our money. We need to know you, like you, trust you. And to be able to sell what you're doing, your idea, to remember that when you do sell, this whole selling is serving, but it is, because you can only allow other people to benefit from you when you show them what you can do. And if you don't be confident, they're never going to believe you. So it's really getting over that fear. And I've worked with so many people who I would have never thought wouldn't be confident, but they weren't. But then when we work together now, the change, just seeing what they're doing, it's incredible.
What are some of your like success stories in seeing that change?
Okay, well, who do I start with? Where do I start? Okay, one of my favorite success stories is one of my clients called Amina. So Amina came to me. She was in my first round of stage school, which is my group of women that I run. And she said to me, I don't want to speak on stages. I just want to be able to talk more with my clients, sell more of what I do. And by the time we were halfway through, she was like, Khalila, I want to go on stages like you. And just last month, she actually hosted her own event. And I, in my whole time as being a Muslim, have never been to an event as good. It was phenomenal. It was her dream. She'd had it for 20 years. This dream of doing this event, and she hadn't done it. And now she had the confidence, she was on the stage, everyone had such a great time. It was just phenomenal. And she did her speech and she blew everyone away. We were in tears, and just seeing that transformation for her, mashallah, alhamdulillah, was incredible. That was definitely one, but there's been so many.
Do you give, for example, someone like me who say, or maybe I pause a lot, what kind of tips would you give to stop the a lot of people say like in between? What kind of tips would you give to them?
That's the number one question. It's a good one. We say and like as filler words. So when we're trying to think of what to say, it's really normal. But the best thing to do is to pause. So I have like a switch, a flick. If I'm talking normally, I'm like, I'm not
that's different.
caring. But if I'm on the camera, and then watch I just mess up and start saying, but you know, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I have a switch now that because I've practiced so much to pause. And actually, when we pause, it actually allows people to see us as more of an expert.
Why?
Well, so they did some studies and they found that the more higher a person has of a qualification, when they had people on a stage, the slower they spoke and the more they paused. And they really did research into this, like why? Why are the people with the less qualifications kind of rushing and coming on and they're speaking really fast and they're saying and they're... And what they came to the conclusion was is that the people with the higher qualifications felt like people needed to listen to them or they had more right to be heard.
Yeah.
So psychologically, when we hear people that speak slowly, that pause and don't rush to fill the pause, we automatically think they're an expert.
Is it like a suspense being created?
Yeah, exactly. It adds dopamine. When we pause as well, it's like a cliffhanger. Like, what are they going to say next? So yeah, it's just practicing. That's literally it. Just to practice the pause instead of saying
I'll have to try that.
Go for it. Let me know.
Wow, I've just said that a minute.
It's so common. Because that's how we've spoken our whole lives.
Especially if you're translating from like speaking with your friends and family where you speak however you want, and then you're coming into even if it's speaking in front of a few clients or speaking to a client without any cameras or anything, even then it's like you are trying to come across as an expert. Mm-hmm. I'm trying not to say without
doing very well.
Without the saying the likes and everything. So it does make a difference. When you put it like that, it does make sense.
I always say to my clients, once you work with me, it's like coming into the matrix. You can never go back. You can never unhear the It's like you just train your brain and it becomes normal.
So when you are training people for public speaking, do you make them practice beforehand in front of like small crowds or just yourself, or just listening to yourself on voice notes or recording yourself?
Yeah, voice notes are the best. Voice notes are the best. Recording yourself, watching yourself. Most of us hate the sound of our own voice, and most of us don't watch ourselves back, but it's the best way to learn. And also to watch other speakers as well and like get inspiration from them. What are they doing? To notice what did they do that you enjoyed or what made you emotional, and actually just noticing, that really, really helps. And yeah, of course, I would practice with them, some of them in person, some of them on Zoom. It depends on their setup, but definitely practice is the key to speaking well.
Do you ever get stage fright? I can imagine if I was to go on stage, I'll get stage fright. You can ask Mo in front of the camera when we first started the podcast. I was so bad. I'm still not there yet, but I'm much better than when I first started. I was stiff like that. Now I'm a bit better. I was trying to speak a bit more with my hands as well.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Everyone does. Before I ever did my first live with Homeschool Queens, before I did any training, I did it like this with my hands on the camera because I was so scared. And also I didn't know how anyone was going to find me as a Niqabi. But firstly, I always say the Dua of Musa, to untie the knots in your tongue. That really relieves me a lot.
Rabbi shrah li sadri.
Yeah, every time. Don't speak without saying that. It makes such a difference. And I think it's just believing that even if it's one person that you're going to touch with your story or your words or whatever it is you're going to say, then it's worth it. I think that's what helps us to remember our why before we go on a stage or we go on a camera. But stage fright can also add to your adrenaline and make you more interesting as a speaker. So it's not something to feel bad about.
I think stage fright is one of them, is you need to get over your first few words. And then once you get over your first few words, then you're fine. And it's like with anything, you're scared, you build up this whole activity in your head, and then you take the first step. And then after that, you realize it's fine.
Yeah.
And I think I would assume that stage fright is probably similar.
Yeah, I think so. It's just the more you do it, the less scared you'll become.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, great. TEDx speaking, how did you become a public speaker through TEDx?
Yeah. Actually, it's not some I was in a coaching call. So I had signed up for some coaching with this lady in America because I always love to invest in myself and take coaching. And actually it was me and the lady who was teaching us, and then a whole group of white American men. I know I'm white, but obviously I'm in Niqab, so I don't know if I still have that ticket. But so we're in there and she says, is anyone in here willing to share their story, their business story? And I actually went back to uni even though I was a school dropout. I went back to uni, I did storytelling at Goldsmith University in my adult life. So I know storytelling. I work with clients on storytelling. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, the stage fright. Because obviously I'm a Muslim woman, that's what I'm like, oh, am I going to do it? But I was like, no, come on, I have to. Because I always tell my clients, just go for it. So I put my virtual hand up because it was on Zoom and I shared my story. And it was very much what I told you, where I had an agent and I lost the agent because I didn't know how to use my voice anymore. And this was just at the beginning of my journey where I'd only just started speaking, but I shared it anyway. And afterwards, I got this message from a man called Mark, and he said, I run TEDx, I work with one of the top producers in Hollywood, we're in Santa Barbara, California, we'd love to have you on. Okay. And that was it. And it has changed my life. It's like a title that really, really helps. And it was amazing. I got to give a talk called Fighting Cultural Misconceptions Against Islam. And during the conversation, he said to me, I've never ever had a conversation with a Muslim woman before. And he was just so shocked. He really thought he was like, so why do men have to be on one side and women on the other? And, in their head, they just have this idea that Islam just treats women like crap. And it opened their eyes to a lot, which was amazing. And that's another reason why I say your voice is so powerful, because it's these conversations that change things. And yeah, actually now myself and another wonderful entrepreneur called Jennifer have been given a license to have our own TEDx. So we're going to be knocking down some barriers with that, inshallah. I'll be coaching the speakers.
Is she the one that was with Osama on Islam Channel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How has it completely changed your life, TEDx?
Well,
Has it just opened at different barriers?
Yeah, because TEDx is the place to speak. Most people spend their whole lives trying to get on the stage of TEDx, and it has over 1 billion viewers. It's a really good platform to utilize, and you can use it for so much. You can share your stories. So I think it was a great start into where I opened up the academy and then now train people, and now I'll be training people for TEDx as well.
Okay. So do you travel the world, or is it like you create events yourself over here? How does it work?
Yeah, at the moment it's mostly been over here. Definitely will be traveling. I have 4 kids, so it's not always easy. Yeah, and I'm a single mom, so it's not always easy to just fly. But yeah, definitely I will be doing a lot more global. But we have the blessing of having a global audience online as well. Yeah. So that's been wonderful to be able to do international speaking at home.
So how are you managing running your academy, being a public speaker with 4 kids?
And I homeschool.
And your homeschool.
I'm crazy. I actually don't
How many
know.
hours do you have in your day?
24. No, I really try to balance my time. I think, look, I'm going to be honest with you. The set of entrepreneur, like the standard, is created for a man. Like it's not. It's for a man. You know, the go go go, don't stop, which works for a man. It doesn't work for a woman. We have many things that are important. So for me, I didn't ever want to create a business that took me away from my family. It was a business that works around my family. And if that means it's slower than it could be, then I'm okay with that. And actually, it has been incredibly fast, which is just a blessing. But I make sure, for example, mornings I'm with my kids, except Mondays because I have Islam channel. And I work Saturdays and Sundays instead of certain days in the week. So I make it flexible.
I think that's probably one of the benefits of having a business, is you can be flexible around yourself.
100%. That's why I started in business. So when I became a single mum, I was like, I'm not going back to working for someone else and having to clock in and out on their times. It has to be around me. And actually now my older kids, they want to be entrepreneurs. They're so into it. So it's been amazing to involve them.
How do you involve them?
Bring them. So my son, I went to Birmingham to speak. I was asked to speak in Birmingham. Brought my son with me and he filmed me. He's really good on like video editing and filming and all of that. So he does all of my editing for me. So he's involved in that way. And he started to get asked to do other people's now. So he's like, £10 a video. I'm like, we'll up that soon, but it's good for him. Good. He's only 12. So
send him on to shadow Mo around as well.
Oh, amazing. Yes, please. I'm in.
So what kind of things do you teach them about entrepreneurship?
Everything. I don't close the door. So unless I'm with a client, but if I'm maybe studying or learning, they're around. And me and my kids, I really try to have conversations with them. I mean, my oldest is 14. I have a 12-year-old, a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. So obviously, the conversations are a bit different. But I definitely try and teach them. You know, we don't learn income in school. We don't learn how to be financially literate, for example. We don't learn how to create a business. And I think these things are so important. So I try to let them have a head start with that.
I think that's what a lot of people have started to pick up on recently, that I think it was a lot after COVID and people were like, well, we don't learn about finances, we don't learn about taxes, we don't learn about anything which is actually important in school. We learn about Henry VIII and how many wives he killed.
He had, that helped me a lot.
Doesn't matter today, but do you include these kind of things in your homeschooling programs or when you homeschool your kids?
100%. Yeah, I'm not a traditional homeschooler. I definitely allow them if they, whereas time they would have been maybe spending hours on science, I'm happy for him to be on his phone working out how to edit videos, because I know that's something that is also, he's still learning. That's just an example of my son. My daughter's amazing at writing stories, at art. So I definitely include all of this into their homeschooling day.
Why do you homeschool your kids instead of sending them to a public school?
I'm going to go there, yeah. I obviously messed up at school. So I left school at a very young age. And I feel that there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. It's crazy. So I just have this, I guess, fear of letting them just go out into the school system. And I also feel that it didn't teach me, like you said, we spent so long learning about Henry VIII. I don't need to know about that. It doesn't teach them what they need to know. My kids are very creative. They have different skills. So I think that's why. And I actually didn't choose to homeschool. They went to an Islamic school, without saying too much, but it was horrendous. So I took them out, my older two, when they were, I think, 4 and 3. I took them out because it was just not going well. And I was like, I'll just keep them until I can find a school for them. And then we just fell in love with it.
When I speak about homeschooling with my friends, they generally say we would love to homeschool because we don't like the environment of the public schools.
Yeah.
But we're not sure how it would affect our kids socially. What do you say to that?
It's the biggest myth. My kids are so social, Allahumma barik. Like, it's the actual biggest myth that is going. How do they socialize? Well, firstly, they're with us. Like, why do we underestimate the value of socializing with your parents? This is really a big skill. We're having conversations. And then secondly, you just find like-minded children for them to be friends with, to go out with. You have to obviously make the effort to take them out. But when you're not homeschooling, you have to do that anyway. So
Yeah.
it's not really a difference. They're perfectly social, probably too social.
Some people are more worried that their kids just end up not knowing how to speak to other kids or other people, especially as they're growing up. But then I spoke to someone else and he said up until 16 or 18, generally they're fine anyway, because they're always around family or family friends and they're always speaking to one another.
Yeah, I think what's amazing about homeschool kids, every single homeschool kid that I've met, is they don't really see age. Because obviously when you're going to school, you're only with people your age in a classroom. And actually, you're not allowed to speak in school anyway. So I don't know why they have this idea. It's like don't speak, you have to stay silent in the classroom. And then you go out to play and it's like taking the lid off a Coca-Cola bottle and you've just been shaking it. They've got all this energy, you know. And for our kids who are homeschooled, they mix with kids of all ages, young, older, and they just learn to socialise and they don't really see age and they gain so much from being around such different ages as well. It's really nice.
Do you think your kids have benefited a lot more from being around different people and not seeing their ages? Because I remember when I was in school, it was like, oh yeah, this person's a year older than me, can't really approach him. This year's younger, can't be seen with him.
100%. And actually, they have friends who are older, who are younger, and they get on with everyone. That's why I'm saying, actually, most homeschool kids are so social. It's amazing.
Okay, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. We just have this fear, but it's not as scary as we think. Trust me, I'm not. People, they're like, how do you do it? You must be a teacher. I'm like, no. You learn with your kids, and you just take time and spend building connections. It's nice.
But how do you do the syllabus and everything? Do you have to follow like a certain criteria?
No, I don't do the syllabus. I mean, my older kids now are coming into GCSE, so we're buckling down a little bit more. But I do a lot of tuition online for them.
Okay.
Before I was doing entrepreneurship, I was like there with my laminator and doing all, but I can't. I have to be realistic. Obviously, I spend a lot of time working, so they have tutors online.
Okay. When you went into entrepreneurship, what were you doing at the or just before, and then what was your first step?
When I went into entrepreneurship, well, it was 2020, and I'd just given birth to my fourth, middle of the pandemic, and I knew that I would have to return to work. I'd just come out of a horrible marriage, and I knew that I would have to return to work. And like I said to you earlier, there was just no way. I was already homeschooling my children. Now I was on my own. I knew I couldn't make enough money to create generational wealth for my kids, for them to not be stuck in a situation that they didn't ask to be in, unless I actually did something a bit more. And it was a long late night conversation on the phone to a friend where we were like both in the same position. And she was really, really good at design. And I was always good at speaking. I was good at writing. And we were like, let's put our heads together and create something. And we did. And it just went from there. And I think it was so scary. I remember like having a piece of paper and writing pros and cons on both sides. And shall I just do cleaning? Shall I be a carer? Shall I take this risk? And this is so unknown. I don't have family that are in entrepreneurship. My family are all teachers. Like they don't do business. And here I am already homeschooling, already a Muslim, and now I'm going to start my own business. So everyone was just telling me, you can never do it. You're a Niqabi, you homeschool, you're a single mum. Everyone was telling me that I couldn't do it. And I guess I'm stubborn, so I was just determined to prove them wrong. And I just kept making dua, and I just thought to myself, what have I got to lose? If it doesn't work, I'll go and do the cleaning. But if I stay stuck doing that, I'm never going to be able to get out of this situation, which was at the time I was having to be on benefits. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to have my children have the life that I want them to have. And, you know, alhamdulillah, to be able to create wealth as well means we can give zakat, we can go on holidays, we can go to Hajj if we want to. Like, these are things that I wanted to build. And so that's what pushed me.
Did you have that kind of misconception as well at the time? So back in 2020, that Muslims aren't allowed to have a lot of money.
I had such demons with money. So in my first business, we made curriculums for homeschooling. We produced curriculums, and we would argue about how much they would be. And I'd be like, we can't charge £12. Like, even though it was like months of hard work. And I really struggled with it. And I think it's because obviously we have these connotations like more money, more problems. Money is the root of all evil. So we have all these negative thoughts. But the more I studied and the more I started to realize, hold on a minute, you know, you want to charge your worth. It's okay to make money. And I find now, true story, the clients who pay more, they get more out of it because I'm more dedicated to show up because it's more worth my time, and they're more dedicated because they put money into it, so they get more results.
So, you know, when you had that misconception, how are you fighting these demons, as you called it? Because obviously you were in a situation where you were on benefits.
Yeah.
And you wanted to come out of that situation where you can probably provide for your children and give them a better life, and then eventually create a generational wealth.
Yeah. It's a lot of mindset work.
Yeah.
I think it was, so when I had business coaches, and I remember one business coach, she said to me, if you walk down the street and you see, what's your favourite car? What's your favourite car?
Oh, I don't have one. Oh, what's your favourite car? Just say Mercedes, something.
All right, Mercedes, for example, okay? And you see the most beautiful Mercedes, your dream car, it's what you always wanted. And then you look at the price tag and it's so cheap. What's the first thing you're going to think?
Yeah, you think, let's buy it.
What's wrong with it, right? What did you say?
Let's buy it.
Let's buy it, even though
No,
it's so
but
cheap.
the thing is, I relate it to property. The worst property, you think, let's buy it.
Yeah, but okay, you don't count then because you've got different, but majority of people,
Yeah, what's wrong with it?
they would think, what's wrong with it?
Or it's fake.
Or yeah, exactly. So it's fake, it's not real, what's wrong with it? These are the things that people think. And so she said to me, that was like the light bulb moment. So she said to me, you price it right.
Yeah.
People are going to see your value. And I think that's when I started to understand how important it was and the importance that it's okay. If, like I said, if we don't have money, wealth should go into our hands. There is wealth out there, but it's going into the wrong hands. So we need to start bringing it back into our hands, the right people's hands. We're going to use it well.
I think Ray's from Amazing mentioned it quite well. He said that there's a big misconception that money is not good for you.
Yeah.
But he goes, we have to realize that you need money to do pretty much everything. You need money to live. If you don't have money, you can't buy food, or you can't pay rent, or you can't buy a house, or you can't buy a nice car. You need money. But the key thing is that £1, and he says £1 in a Muslim community, if I've earned it, I should give £1, and I want to spend £1 in a public speaking coach, I should give it to you.
Yeah.
And if you want to go to a business coach, you can give to Osama Musa, for example.
Right. This is our problem.
That £1, it's like our own Muslim economy.
Yeah, this is our problem. So like my family are Jewish, so I can tell you from now,
They
the
do
Jewish communities do this. This is how they keep wealth. They work with each other and only with each other. The Muslims, a lot find it hard to keep paying within the communities, and I think that's a really big problem. And that's what we need to do. We need to see each other, recognize the skill that's here, because there's crazy skill, mashallah, and keep investing back into each other.
100%. And I think the more we educate about how money is good and can be utilized for the good, because we as humans, I don't know why, we just think negatively about everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is that we just think money is the root of all evil, like I said, or more money equals more problems.
Yeah.
But we don't think more money equals solving problems. But you can flip, and everything, I always say everything has a positive and negative.
Yeah.
You can just flip the meaning. And then it's like, you know what, someone can come out of a bad situation just because they know their worth.
100%. 1% of world income could end world poverty.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like there's so much good that we can do. There's so many things. And Allah tells us upper hand is better than the lower hand. So if we can try and be the upper hand, there's so many benefits. It's just that we have to, I think, keep renewing our attentions.
Yeah.
So that, because look, let's be honest, the more money that comes in, it's not just like, oh, suddenly you're rich. Like there's still more bills to pay or more things to keep or more systems to pay for. So you have to always, I think, keep renewing your intention, asking Allah to make the money that you're making have barakah in it. And Islam is just, we have to give zakat on it. We have to give sadaqah on it. So we're always going to be doing something good with it if we have the right intention. I think it's really important.
So, you know, after your divorce, what was your financial situation like? Is it you couldn't make ends meet? Did you have to borrow from friends and family?
Yeah, my parents, may Allah guide them, supported me so much. I had nothing. it was really difficult. And I think we're in times now where even if you're on benefits, for me, it didn't even cover my rent. So let alone put clothes or food, or it was a really hard situation. And yeah, it's just been great to be able to turn it around and now be able to pay my parents' bills and do other things. And it's been so quick, so I'm just praying it will just continue to elevate, inshallah.
You posted something on Instagram today about at the age of 35.
I'm 35.
You, if I recall correctly, you didn't expect to be where you are. Why is that?
Because, like I said, even 10 years ago, I mean, I was in a very abusive marriage where I'd lost myself in every situation. I couldn't speak. Like, people don't understand. It's a lot that happens for them to break you down to that point, but you're just a nervous wreck. You are always walking on eggshells around everything, everyone. And obviously, alhamdulillah, since 2020, I've been able to build myself back, my kids back. And yeah, I didn't expect, like I said, I've worked with such phenomenal people. Opening Power Voice Academy, for me, it's never been about me. It's not been about, I want to be this voice, Khalila Lister. Like, yeah, I love going on the stage, don't get me wrong. I love being able to impact people and share my story, but it's seeing the amazing Muslims that I've worked with going out and sharing their story. Like we spoke about, for example, one of my clients now is a brother called Ibi. He's got a phenomenal story. He turned his life around from being in jail to being a 7-figure earner. And just having him to be able to share that powerfully with good speaking skills, to me, that's just worth everything. So when I look at my life and I'm like, I started in my 30s. It's never too late. You're never too old to go after your dreams. And we feel like we are. I wouldn't have thought I could start a public speaking academy, be the first live Niqabi TV presenter in the UK. I didn't think it would be possible, but if you try and you go for your dreams, more things might just open than you ever believed possible.
So when you were, let's say, 25, where did you see yourself in the next 15 years? Or did you even see yourself?
I didn't think about it. I was just surviving. My first two were born just over a year between them. So I was just in mummy mode. I had my first at 21. I was away from home. I lived in Birmingham. I was just trying to survive. Alhamdulillah, it wasn't this big depressed bubble. I had Islam. I was very happy. I had my kids. But yeah, I didn't think I'd be back doing anything. Like, I would have never believed you if you told me.
So when you were in your difficult marriage, you felt you lost your voice and you didn't have the power to speak. How did you regain that? Because I would assume that it's a very, very difficult step. It's easy to say, just leave, but
no,
it's not as easy as that. How did you regain that voice of yours?
Yeah, it's not easy to just leave. It's a long process. Like I said, it breaks you down to a point where you don't know your worth anymore when you're in these situations. And alhamdulillah, from Allah, I was able to get out, and it took a long time. I mean, it took me having to sit with myself and find out who I was again, find out what I enjoyed. I didn't know. And I think for me, it's looking at my kids, and I don't want them to ever be in a situation where they don't know what they like, where they're just thinking about everyone else. Yeah, it's good to think about other people, and that's something that's, again, I don't want to say it's just a revert thing, but obviously maybe when you first start learning about the religion, you learn love for your brother what you love for yourself, which is really important, but it doesn't mean neglect yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean give everyone else the life jacket and go drown, which I think is what was happening to me for a long time. And I realized that I have to love myself wherever I'm at, even if I'm not in the place that I want to be or exactly how I want to be. I have to love myself now so that my children can do that too. And yeah, it's been incredible. I would say it took a long time. It took a lot of healing, a lot of work, a lot of good companions and conversations. And, it's always going to be a healing journey, but it's important.
Did you feel you had like a support system around you?
I made dua to Allah, to give me really good companions. And especially over this last year and a half, have the most incredible support system. I have my sister's Muslim, alhamdulillah, so I've always had her, and my parents have been really good support, but I think I've just gained a small group of amazing, particularly Muslim women who are just, they're go-getters. They want you to grow as well. I think that's really important. Often there are many people who, they want you to do well, but just not better than them. And I'm not like that, and I'm not going to change. If someone does better than me, I'm so happy, you know? I love it. So I think that's really important, to find people who want you to do well as well.
If you had to say one thing to those sisters or brothers who are in abusive marriages and they want to get out and they're struggling, what would you say?
You have to be ready. I think probably a lot of people saw it around me. I know my sister used to get very frustrated and be like, what are you doing? And when you keep going back, but you have to be ready. When you're ready, it will be okay. It will be okay. I think we feel like there's many things holding us in these situations where we feel like we're going to either like damage that person or not have anything or not be able to create anything. But actually, yes, you will. And you deserve to be happy.
Mm. Did you feel you deserve to be happy?
No.
You don't?
No, not in that situation. I just felt like I needed to make sure they were happy and my kids were happy. I didn't really consider myself while I was in that situation. And again, if you knew me before, I was feisty. I was on the stages. It took a lot to break it down to that point. But you grow through what you go through. So it's definitely helped me now to know you can reach rock bottom and come back up. I know it's a bit cliche, but it's possible. And I think it's really important to know that I think I was determined that I didn't want my situation to define me. I didn't want my situation to define me. Children who come from broken homes are way more likely not to do well in life. I was like, not on my watch. My kids are going to be entrepreneurs or whatever they want to be, And it's taking that step and knowing your worth, doing the things that you want to do and going after your dreams. Whether you're in a bad situation through a marriage or whatever it is, we all get tested in different ways.
And how did you recover mentally? Did you have to go seek professional help, or was it more just surrounding yourself with good friends?
Yeah.
Because it's a bit of everything. Because it's not, the journey is not like that. It's a lot like that, up, downs, and there's a lot of it.
Yeah. I think it is important to get professional help. I didn't, but I think a lot of people do need to. I think it's very important, but you need to find the right person. I think I'm not a depressive, alhamdulillah, but I'm not a depressive person, which is from God, it's not from me. I don't, people who suffer from depression choose to, but I've always had something in me that's like, as long as we're getting up, we're gonna try and be up. And I'm not gonna sit here and say I wasn't struggling for a long time mentally, of course, especially when you think your life's gonna be a certain way and then suddenly everything changes and you're on your own. I think that's the scariest part, being on your own with children, because as a woman, it's not your role. You can't be two people, and it's not something you ever want. But I've been blessed to have my family, so I've always had that support system. And like I said, just to not be defined by my circumstances. I think that's what just kept me plodding on. I was like, I'm not going to be defined. I don't want my kids to wake up and have a depressed mom. Like, I want them to still have that life. And actually, something I want to say is to parents that I'm not encouraging anyone to be on their own, by the way. Being in a marriage is always better, but one good parent is better than two bad parents. And I think that's really important. I can definitely see, alhamdulillah, my children are okay. Like, they're okay. And you can do that, whether you're a mum, whether you're a dad. You can do that.
What do you mean by two bad parents?
If you're just like arguing all the time, or they're breaking you down, or you're losing yourself, I think when you're okay mentally, you can be a better parent for your children.
100%. And I think it's also about having behaviours which isn't normalised to the children. And I think I've been speaking about it to a friend of mine recently because he's going through a difficult time, but it's having behaviours which aren't normal, which to the children, they see this as normal. So then when they grow older and they get married, they think, well, I saw my parents doing this.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing you don't want. So someone has to break the cycle. And it's like, for example, you have to go through a difficult time sometimes, like a rocky patch, to come out at the other side. And I think it's that thing where you might have to go through a divorce, but if that, for a lot of people, if that means their children are a lot better on the other side, where they can see the world as a positive place rather than, or their home as a positive place rather than a broken home.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Having your parents, even sometimes people just don't work together and they can be better parents to their children. And that's what is really important. Obviously, we should fight as much as we can, but I do think a broken home, if you're a single parent, you don't have to have it, doesn't mean you have a broken home. Your home can be perfectly brilliant and thriving. So I think that mentality just is important to shift.
In the like South Asian culture, divorced woman is just looked down upon.
I know.
It's slowly changing, but there's still a thing that, you know what, it's your fault. Why'd you get divorced? Yeah. You're from a different culture. How did being divorced impact your relationships, or just the way you're seen around your community?
So even though my family are Jewish, my parents eat pork. So that's the biggest giveaway of how Jewish they are. Like, they're not religious at all. We celebrated Christmas. I don't know anything about the Jewish religion. My parents' and no, my dad's parents were not religious, but my mum's family were quite religious, but my parents themselves, they don't believe. So I wasn't brought up in that culture. We were brought up British, I guess.
Okay.
So there wasn't a problem. I think it was just the bad picture it painted of Muslim men. For me, that was difficult, but I obviously had to keep coming back and saying to them, the Prophet was the best man. He was amazing. There were these, and just keep sharing stories and like having them be around my friends who've got good husbands to see, because otherwise that was probably the difficult part. But there wasn't a cultural thing where it was like, you're now tarnished. Alhamdulillah, we don't have that. But I do know for a lot of cultures and South Asian cultures, it's something that really, it's a generational cycle, because the Prophet married divorced women.
Of course.
So that's what I'm saying, is like, that's something that's shocking to me when I became Muslim, that there's so many misconceptions that aren't actually Islam. Like, Islam is beautiful, it's so clear, but we're just a bit far away from it.
It's a cultural aspect as well, but because we're Muslim, we kind of mix them two together.
Yeah, we think it's Islam, but it's not. Yeah.
Let's talk something positive.
Let's go back to
What's your favorite? What's your best achievement?
Do I have to have one?
If you have one that will stand out, you can roll them off if you want as well. Okay. Actually, roll them off.
Well, my first best achievement is my kids. Alhamdulillah, they're my biggest blessing, being a Muslim. Those two hand in hand, of course, being a Muslim first, having my kids. But I would definitely say it's been the Power Voice Academy, opening that. It's a dream. Like, I couldn't believe there's no public speaking academy for Muslims in the world. Because when I've trained with some of the best public speakers that are out there. And I definitely can tell you, especially if you're going to go on a stage, if you're going to do a keynote, if you're going to share your story, there really is a big difference between being trained and untrained. Like, big entrepreneurs, they know they need speaking training. And it's something I think that is missing in the Muslim community, understanding the importance of working with a coach, getting training from someone who's professional and understands storytelling even. And yeah, it's just been incredible that I opened it, and I've worked with such amazing companies. I've worked with corporates. I've worked with so many different people, professionals, new coaches, just inspirational, amazing people, getting them out there, seeing them change and thrive. That to me has just been amazing.
Well, what's next for Power Voice Academy?
So much. I have so much. I'm only in my first year, like I said. So obviously, for me, I don't want it to be about me. Power Voice Academy is not about me. People are always like, why don't you make your Instagram page Khalila Lister? I'm like, no, I want to create a legacy. So I want to be able to train other people who've worked with me to be coaches, to be in there, to help other people. And we can create generational wealth and a pool for Muslim business owners. There you go, Muslims, we've made a new word.
Yeah, it's a good word. And how are you helping these Muslim business owners create general wealth? Is it through the public speaking platform as well, or are you involved in other business coaches to help with other parts?
Yeah,
as well?
I want to work in to bring more business coaches, but you can create good wealth off speaking. I mean, my client, she just got, I think, 7,000 for a 20-minute speech. If you position yourself right, you can get paid, and that's minimum, that's starting wages, you know. You can get paid pretty well to speak especially if you're someone who's done a lot of great things with your life. When you know how to position yourself, you get what I call a speaker's kit. You can start sending around to media. I help my clients to create that. Then you can start gaining a lot of profit from speaking.
That's a lot of money. That's
a lot of money.
What, 21 grand an hour?
Sounds good, right?
Yeah, it's good. It's an untapped market.
It's a phenomenal market. It really is. The right people will pay people if they think you're going to bring value to their audience. Because think about it, if you're going to someone that's high ticket, they're going to be making a lot of money, and they value their speakers to bring people in or to attract the right market. That's why, as a speaker, the most important thing is your message. You have to be so clear. It's like, you know, with a business, you have to niche. As a speaker, you have to niche your message to be really, really clear.
Is that why you say storytelling is very important?
Storytelling is so important. When we tell a story, we automatically connect with our audience. They get to know us. It releases so many hormones in them, because when people listen to your story, they're never thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves.
And how to relate it back.
And they just automatically create connection. Storytelling is so important. Even when the amount of people, we call it death by presentation, especially people who are really academic but not creative, when they put together a presentation and it's just all like facts. And Stanford University, they found out that 85% of people remember stories, and I think it was 7% of people remember the actual facts and statistics. So if we add a story into those facts and statistics, suddenly we've mesmerized the audience.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Might have to take up a public speaking course.
Absolutely.
If you were sitting next to a 14-year-old Khalila Lister?
That's a big question, because 14 is the year that I went into rebellious stage. So I don't think I could tell myself very much because I wouldn't listen, but I would definitely tell myself to calm down. And I don't think I would change anything, because I think I had to go through those paths and meet certain people and mix with different people and be a bit crazy to find Islam, which ultimately I would have never ever believed you at 14 if I knew I was going to be a Muslim woman, let alone a Niqabi woman. So I don't think I would change anything. Alhamdulillah, I think every journey, Allah guides everyone through different ways. Yeah. So I don't think anything I would change, but I would probably tell myself, calm down and believe in yourself. Maybe to know my worth a bit more, to know that I had the ability to do great things, alhamdulillah, and yeah, to believe in myself.
That's very powerful, to believe in yourself. Just to finish off, we'll do a quick fire round.
Okay, I hate these.
Favorite food?
Strawberries.
Strawberries?
Yeah.
Like a dish?
Oh, a dish. So I told you I hate these rounds. I'm a public speaker. I need to think and process. Okay. Favorite food, seafood spaghetti.
Okay. Favorite holiday destination?
Mecca.
Favorite TV show? You can say Islam Channel.
Okay, Islam Channel. Tune in on Mondays at 9 a.m.
No, our podcast comes out at 8 o'clock and then tune in.
Go to the podcast and then come to Islam Channel for me.
Favorite, I forgot this one now. Favorite book?
Speak Like TED. It's a good one.
Is that about public speaking? No?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to add that to the list. And favorite day of the week?
Not Mondays.
I know it's not Mondays.
Sorry. I like Fridays.
Why?
Jummah, I don't work, I do stuff with the kids, it's like Eid for the kids.
Fantastic. Khalila, thank you very much for being a guest. It's a very insightful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.